What's up, YouTubers? It's the Gold Standard 00924 coming at you with another video. I'm going to be continuing with my Royal Rumble reviews, given that the Royal Rumble pay-per-view is just around the corner, so I figured I'd kind of continue this installment and try to, get us viewers kind of hyped up for the upcoming Royal Rumble pay-per-view for all the wrestling subscribers. And in this video, I'll be discussing my review for the WWF Royal Rumble of 1998. Overall, I will say this was actually a pretty good card. Nothing like great or anything, but it did its job by advancing storylines, and basically, the matches. There were about 6 matches on the card, and there were some pretty good. On paper, it was still really good, and especially when you watch the matches. Just how most of these matches were being built up. So, yeah, I'm just going to be discussing what I feel is my favorite matches on the card and what are some kind of the least favorite. So, let's just get straight to it. The opening contest we have is Vader taking on Goldust, or at the time he was the artist formerly known as Goldust. And the match, it was just only lasted about 7 to 9 minutes, somewhere between that. Just basically kind of where Goldust at the time was just going through these different attires that he was starting to wear. He wasn't wearing his traditional, I don't know what you call it, but that traditional attire that he wore. And even though he still had the face paint, though, he was just going through these weird phases around this time. And Vader, he was kind of there, and Goldust actually kind of fired Terry Runnels as his valet, and she would be replaced by Luna. So there was, JR kind of explains it in the promotional package, and well, not a promotional package, but more like kind of like what happened over the weeks that were leading into their match at the Royal Rumble. So, but the match, it was kind of there, it wasn't anything spectacular. The only thing that I probably remember the most is the ending to the match, where like Vader did that Vader bomb on the Goldust, and then like Luna was on top of him. Well, top of Vader, while Vader was doing the Vader bomb on Goldust, the back of Goldust. And Vader pretty much won the match. This match gets kind of like 1 1/4 star. It was only 7 minutes to be exact. But, it was just kind of a shame just seeing those two guys just kind of getting sort of underutilized around this time, especially Vader, since he was one of WWE's biggest acquisitions who came from WCW, and the way that Vader was being handled in WWE was just just kind of a missed opportunity. So but the match was just kind of blah. 1 1/4 stars. The next match is a 6-man tag team lucha libre match. You have Mosaic, Max Mini, and Nova taking on El Torito, Tarantula, and Battalion. I apologize if I mispronounced that, but this was just kind of this was a great 6-man tag match. Just fast paced, lucha libre style match. Sonny was also the special guest referee in the match, but it was very fast paced. Like I said, you see a lot of head scissors. My favorite part has to be the one where Max Mini was using Sonny as kind of like a catapult to like fend off his opponents. But it was a pretty short match, but it was still very fun while it lasted. Even though these guys didn't really wrestle in the WWF at the time, like on a full-time basis, because I think they were just kind of brought in there for a little bit, or just for this pay-per-view, because you don't see, this is like one of the rare times that WWE or WWF at the time did something like this. I would like to see maybe a little more, but it was kind of like kind of like WWF's way of like countering WCW's cruiserweight tag matches that they normally would have. But for what it was, I actually enjoyed it. So 3 stars. Next match we have is Ken Shamrock taking on The Rock for the Intercontinental Championship. This match was actually going well for the most part. Just basically the story behind it was like Ken Shamrock was pretty much going through all the members of the Nation of Domination, just pretty much defeating every single one. And it all come down to The Rock, who was the Intercontinental Champion at that time. He Stone Cold actually forfeited the Intercontinental belt over to The Rock. And this started his 8-month title reign, I believe. And but this was actually a really underrated feud. I mean, people were behind Shamrock, and The Rock was just being the cocky heel that he was back then. Just some great back and forth. Rock started off getting the advantage, but Shamrock eventually came back. The Nation of Domination also interfered for a little bit, and there was also one moment where like The Rock used the brass knuckles to hit Ken Shamrock with, and then like after he hit Shamrock with the brass knuckles, The Rock actually put the brass knuckles on the Shamrock before actually covering him, and Shamrock actually kicked out of that. And then basically Shamrock used the belly to belly on The Rock to supposedly win the match. At least he thought he did, to win the IC title. But then like Rock and the referee started having a little argument, and then the referee checked to see Ken Shamrock to see if he used any weapons in the match, and then it turns out that the referee discovered Ken Shamrock having the brass knuckles under his trunk, and pretty much because of that, the end result was reversed, and The Rock won and retained his IC title by disqualification. It was a pretty good match. Not as good as maybe like their King of the Ring match, but certainly better than the WrestleMania 14 match, which only lasted about 5 minutes or somewhere under that. But this was actually a really good match until but their King of the Ring 98 match I preferred the most. So, but for what it was, I liked it. So about 3.5 stars. The next match is for the Tag Team Championship between the Legion of Doom and the New Age Outlaws. Basically, there was kind of storyline leading up to it, with the New Age Outlaws powerbombing, I think powerbomb Ammo through an announce table with the help of DX. And the reason I separate New Age Outlaws and DX is because this was a little before New Age Outlaws were officially members of the New Age Outlaws. But I guess you could say it's kind of a little foreshadowing, or kind of like they were kind of working as a team. But yeah, like I said, this was a little before Triple H revamped the stable, and that's where he brought X-Pac and the Outlaws. But the Legion, this match was kind of alright. Just the video package is really cool, and you don't really see that from a lot of the undercard anymore, because normally WWE today would just throw in a match for the sake of throwing in a match and not have any proper build-up leading these matches, kind of giving us a reason why we should care. Now, granted, this is the Royal Rumble, so the undercard matches are usually secondary, and the Royal Rumble match is really kind of like their main focus, hence the pay-per-view name. But still, I mean, even during those times, I mean, even the undercards show that they were just as important as the world title picture, which is something you don't see in WWE today. Getting back to the New Age Outlaws Legion and Doom match, I mean, it was, like I said, it was fine for what it was. Just a normal pace wrestling match. I can't really say too much about it. I can't really remember any notable spots, to be exact. But it was just basically kind of like an old school versus new school type of match. I guess you could say more like passing the torch, given Legion of Doom were like like the most over tag team in like the 80s and the early 90s, and then New Age Outlaws is actually a team that was formed a couple months prior with like Billy Gunn turning on the Honky Tonk Man and siding along with Road Dogg. So this match I can't really. I mean, it didn't really last that long. The New Age Outlaws won by DQ, and I think like the LOD tried to nail the Doomsday device. I could be wrong, but Legion of Doom had the match won, and then like either Road Dogg or Billy Gunn used a steel chair, and then that caused a disqualification. So even though Legion of Doom won, they don't win the belts because of the disqualification. So yeah, I mean, that was basically Legion. All I remember for the Legion of Doom against New Age Outlaws. About 2 stars, really. Nothing really something to be pissed off about, but that pisses me off particularly. But it was just kind of bridging the gap between the IC title and the Royal Rumble match. And speaking of the Royal Rumble match, that happens to come up next. What can I say about this Royal Rumble match? A lot of carnage going on, especially the first couple minutes. You had Cactus Jack as number 1 and Chainsaw Charlie being number 2. So basically, Mick Foley and Terry Funk going at it. They also brought in weapons as well, like steel chairs, and at first, like there was a little chair shot wars going on where they're clashing with chairs. I loved that part, and so it was, and this was also notable because Mick Foley. This is like probably the only Rumble where Mick Foley came off with like came in the Royal Rumble like on 3 occasions. Especially with the whole 3 faces of Foley. And like after Cactus Jack got eliminated, it wasn't long before Mankind came out, and then Mankind got eliminated, and then Mick Foley came back a second time, I should say, as Dude Love for towards the end of the Rumble match. So that was some notable moments there, and The Rock was the Iron Man of this match. He lasted about like 50 minutes to be exact. I'm just estimating somewhere between 45-50 minutes around that time, but he did last a lot longer, and he was only, I mean, this is in terms of star power, there wasn't really a whole lot, but WWE was basically utilizing the roster that they had at the time, and try to compensate over that with some really good storytelling and a lot of carnage. And this match pretty much centered around Austin being the supposed Mark Man, and people, and this was really around the time when Austin was shining, and really that this was Austin's time to really kind of take the next step and become the WWF champion. And so, but that was really great Rumble. It was a really good Rumble match. I wouldn't say it's the best ever. You also saw like Owen Hart coming out and then getting attacked by Triple H, and then a lot later on he got eliminated. Thanks to China hitting Owen with the crutches. Let's see. What other stuff? One of the DOA members actually got mistaken for being Stone Cold, so that was kind of pretty funny. And The Rock eliminating Farouk all of a sudden, leaving the Farouk shock, and start of the Rock Farouk rivalry that kind of foreshadowed The Rock eventually kicking out Farouk and becoming the new leader of the nation. That was cool, seeing The Rock getting his push. But despite all that, Steve Austin eliminated The Rock to win the Royal Rumble match that year. So that was a sign of things to come. 3 and 1/4 stars. The right guy won also, but there was still some really good shit, even if it's crazy. But then again, that was the Attitude Era back then. And that, last but not least, we have the casket match for the WWF title. The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, who was the champion at the time. And this was a good match, I would say. I mean, it's not one of their better ones if you compare it to like their matches at Ground Zero and Bad Blood. But this match was still fine for what it was. You saw Undertaker, Shawn Michaels starting off the match, going at it. Without before the match would start, they would just kick their asses. Just going all out. And basically, Shawn Michaels did a pile driver on Undertaker through steel steps. And then just basically a lot of carnage. You saw them fighting under the casket, like when the casket lid was shut. They were going at it. And DX pretty much interfered later on. Triple H hitting Undertaker with the crutches. So basically, Triple H was kind of injured at the time, so he couldn't defend his European title. And then I think and this was also, I forgot to, how can I not point this out? The first couple minutes, Undertaker backdropped Shawn Michaels onto the casket, but instead Michaels actually landed on like the edge of the casket, and because of the back pain that Shawn Michaels had, he had to sit out for the next 4 years, retired until 2002. So this was kind of the beginning of the end for Shawn Michaels' career, as we thought at the time. We thought he couldn't wrestle again, and he did at WrestleMania 14 for the last time, at least for the time being, after his match with Austin at WrestleMania 14. But getting back to the Undertaker versus Michaels, this match was just basically kind of a throwaway match. Well, not a throwaway match. It's not a throwaway match like I'm saying, but it was used to kind of advance storylines. I mean, it was kind of obvious that the Undertaker and Kane were gonna show down because they were kind of planting the seeds at the time, and I think they did a really good job with that. And then the whole roster, the whole WF locker room just pretty much emptied, and they were all, and a lot of the Los Boricuas came out, the New Age Outlaws, and a lot of the other and the whole roster, pretty much mainly the heel roster, were getting on the Undertaker, and then like Kane's music hit, he came out, he kicked some ass, like pretty much cleaned out the ring, and then Undertaker and Kane, they thought that they were on good terms again, but instead Kane pretty much turned on the Undertaker once more, and then Kane chokeslammed Undertaker inside the casket, which Shawn Michaels closing the casket in order to retain the WF title. So he pretty much, Shawn Michaels won the match. And then at the end, Kane basically lit up a fire on the casket. Well, yeah, he did that, but before he also used the hammer or the axe to kind of smash the casket, and then he lit the fire with the gasoline after pouring the gasoline. So that's basically how the match ends. Pretty much not only how the match ends, and as well as pretty much the show. But it was still a pretty good match in my opinion. But compared to like the other series of matches Undertaker and Shawn Michaels had before and afterwards, you could say this was kind of like one of their worst matches. But I know it might sound like an oxymoron, but I mean, they had some really great matches, but I think compared to like the other matches, there were just a lot of memorable matches. I mean, it's not like as good as like Hell in a Cell or Ground Zero or the WrestleMania matches per se, but it was still good though, but just not great. So 3 stars based at that. So overall, the show gets a 7.8 out of 10. Really liked the card. Well, pretty much the card was still fine. Just basically used to advance storylines, and WWE at the time did a great job with that. So nothing really that I was really pissed off as much, but still very good card, and as well as just the overall pay-per-view event was just really spot on. It delivered. So like I said, overall score is 7.8 out of 10. Let me know what y'all think of this video. So till next time, this is the Gold Standard 00924 signing out.